Hey everybody, welcome to Player Profiler today with Brendon Booth. I'm Brendon Booth. We got a great show to get into this week. I just wanted to start though with I apologize for being late. You gotta love technology, right? I've been trying for the past 20 minutes to get everything started. I turned on the computer, I plugged in my camera, I plugged in my microphone, and for some reason, oh, we can't access your devices. Why not? It works flawlessly most of the time. Why is it just now when I have to go on? So yeah, gotta love it. Anyways, let's let's talk about some things. So today I'm starting an 8-part series previewing each team by division in alphabetical order, starting with the AFC East, because alphabetically that's the first one. It's going to run through the next couple months. I'm taking August 9th off because I'm going to be at the Fantasy Football Expo in Canton, Ohio. So I probably won't be doing a show that day. So this will be right in the middle of preseason, maybe a couple weeks before the start of the regular season. But don't worry, I will still have player news and the top story. So pop some corn, crack a bev. It's short for beverage. Settle in, and let's talk about some things on Player Profiler today, Friday, with Brendon Booth. Fantastisch. That is auf Deutsch for fantastic. Okay, so essentially, my top story today is the NFL has lost their Sunday ticket lawsuit. They were being sued in class action suits by bars and by customers of the NFL Sunday ticket at DirecTV and YouTube television. I have been a Sunday ticket subscriber as many years as I possibly could, from its inception on DirecTV until I didn't have DirecTV anymore. And then again, once it was taken on by YouTube TV. Love the Sunday ticket. I love being able to watch all of the games on Sunday. Love the red zone window, all of that stuff. It all goes to the DVR. I can go back, I can watch films. I mean, we can get 3 games on a Sunday, the 10 a.m. slot, the 1 o'clock slot, and the Sunday night football slot. And some of us can watch all of the games. So we can watch 7 games in a day. Without sleeping. So they were sued because of violations of antitrust. Essentially, they were monopolizing the broadcasting of the games. One thing we love is watching all the games or having access to them, but they are limited in specific markets, and there has been a constant drumbeat for them to offer a package where you can just pay for your one team and only get that one team. Well, they denied that, which is a violation of antitrust. They also had they were privy to the package costs from DirecTV, essentially cornering the market in what they were doing. They had advanced knowledge of things, and they were found to be guilty of violating antitrust laws. So there's a payout to the bars because they were charging exorbitant fees to the bars, and then there's also going to be a $4.7 billion suit or payout to Sunday ticket individual customers. Now, all of this has to go through the appeals process. Obviously, the NFL is not going to just immediately sit back and go, here's $4.7 billion. And so they're going to go to the appeals process, likely all the way to the Supreme Court. We all know how quickly the wheels of justice turn. Not that quickly. So it could be a while before there's any resolution. If you've ever been a Sunday ticket subscriber, I can probably say that until it reaches the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court finds that they were in violation of antitrust laws and they do have to pay out the $4.7 billion settlement, then we will all get a slice of what we are owed, I guess, because they charge too much. Couple things to note. Number one, Clarence Thomas, Supreme Court Justice, has a Super Bowl ring that was given to him by Jerry Jones. So that might be a conflict of interest if it does get that far. The other thing is, if the NFL has to pay out $4.7 billion, they're going to look at that as a loss of revenue, and they're going to try and pick that up somewhere else, whether that's spreading it around to their Fanatics deal, their marketing deals for advertising, things like that. Something's going to cost more eventually. And for that $4.7 billion to be paid out. So, all right, that's our top story. Now let's get to the news. In injury news, George Kittle is recovering from a core muscle surgery that caused him to lose 30 pounds over the offseason. Got to get me that surgery. Kittle got the surgery to address a core injury that he picked up midway through last year. Kittle continued to play through the injury while going on to lead the NFL in tight end receiving yards. So that's pretty cool. If you can have that injury and still lead tight ends and receiving yards, that he wasn't that limited. He should be able to regain the weight that he lost over the summer and be fully healthy by the time the season comes around. So we are wishing George Kittle a speedy recovery, aren't we? Everybody who's not a Rams fan or a Cardinals fan or a Seahawks fan. All right, player news. Now you've heard this one. You likely. I don't imagine that I'm your only source for NFL news, but if I am, I'm very flattered. Thank you. The New England Patriots and running back Rhamondre Stevenson, I like to call him Rhamondre, have agreed on a 4-year, $36 million extension. That's a $12 million AAV, with $17 million being fully guaranteed. Roughly $4 million a year guaranteed. Over his 3 seasons with the Patriots, the talented running back has rushed 499 times for 2,265 yards and 14 touchdowns. He has played in 41 games. He has also missed quite a few games. He's only started 21 of the 41. He also has 121 receptions for 782 yards and a touchdown. Not exactly a beast when it comes to the receiving game, although 40 receptions a year, that's not terrible. He has been dinged up a few times with injuries. Those have cost him to miss 9 games in the last couple of years, and he doesn't have Ezekiel Elliott to kick around anymore. So there's a really good article over on Fantasy Points by Ryan Heath, and it talks about regression and how that applies to predicting performance. And Rhamondre Stevenson is a perfect candidate for a positive regression in that in 2023, and this likely was because of injury, he saw a dip in his career. He saw a dip in his efficiency versus his career efficiency. Now, what that means is that he will likely go back to his career rate, which means that he's going to have a better year this year than he did last year. The Patriots look like they're counting on that, and we will get into the Patriots later on because, as I said, it's the AFC East preview. All right, in ground shaking, earth shattering, heavy news. Denzel Mims has signed with the Jacksonville Jaguars. He was a second-round pick. He's going to try and make the Jaguars 53-man roster, even though he didn't play in 2023. In fact, his last regular season game was in 2022. It's, sometimes we hear about players who don't play for a year and then they come back. We probably don't hear about the ones that try that and it doesn't work, but he's going to attempt that. Essentially, he's struggled to stick with any organization, and the Jaguars have a really crowded receiving room. They have Christian Kirk, Brian Thomas Jr., and Gabe Davis. Very clear starting 3. That Parker Washington is there. Essentially, Denzel Memes. Wow, that's a cool account name. It's the Denzel Memes. So Denzel Mims is essentially a camp body. So I would kind of ignore that unless you're a Jacksonville Jaguars fan. If you're a Jacksonville Jaguars fan, stay tuned because Denzel Mims might be on your roster. Go to playerprofiler.com/news for our player news archive. You can find all of our injury updates, basically everything that I'm talking about, but collated, aggregated. It's an archive. Everything that we're writing at Player Profiler News is archived, and you can go find all of the stories. Say if you're not on Twitter one day and you miss a bunch of the links that come out, if you don't catch our YouTube videos or whatever, go to playerprofiler.com/news and check out our archive. There's a lot of really good writers. We're doing a lot of really hard work. In fact, you can bet your bottom dollar that later on I'm going to be posting something, presumably about the J.J. McCarthy, Sam Darnold quarterback battle up there in freezing cold Minnesota. It's probably not freezing cold, but it's also not probably 97 degrees like it is here in beautiful sunny Northern California. All right. There are no depth chart updates to get to. Essentially, we're in the doldrums of the NFL offseason. So the first sessions of camps are over. We're waiting on training camp to kick off right before the preseason games happen, and then we get into the regular season, and that's only a couple months away. So we're right there. However, nothing is happening. Now, I say nothing is happening, but if you are on Twitter or you follow websites that distribute news, you might be thinking to yourself, if nothing's happening, how are they creating content? Well, I'll tell you. A lot of the beat writers will sit there and they'll write down their story notes throughout those training camp sessions. And then when there's nothing to do, nothing going on, that's when they unleash all of their camp stories. So that's where we're at right now. I am going to help Matt Kelly, our fearless leader, pay some bills. And I will see you on the other side with some AFC East previews. Let's go.
This episode is made possible by Underdog Fantasy, and Underdog Fantasy is the leader in best ball. When you go to join an Underdog Fantasy best ball draft, it fills very quickly, especially now. It's Best Ball Mania season, baby. Best Ball Mania 5. I can't believe they're at Best Ball Mania 5 already. $15 million in prizes. They're giving out $15 million with $1.5 million to first. Playing in best ball leagues makes you better. It helps train you on player value and strategy. And Underdog offers a lot more than just best ball contests. They offer pick'ems. My new favorite, the golf pick'ems. But they have the NBA pick'ems, baseball pick'ems going on throughout the offseason. Hit the pick'ems, back to best ball, hit the pick'ems. So use promo code Underworld. Promo code Underworld gets you a 50% deposit bonus up to $250. So they've increased the maximum deposit bonus. It was $100. Now it's up to $125. When you get the Underdog app, use promo code Underworld and go draft your ass off.
Yes, but not all of it, because you want to keep some ass. I love pick'ems. Pick'em games are fun. You can kind of wake up in the morning and prognosticate and win a little bit of money. The one pick'em that I'm waiting for Underdog to drop is the 2024 Tour de France. It starts tomorrow, and I really want to pick him because I want to pick Tadej Pogacar to win the whole thing, because his team looks really strong. And wait a minute, this isn't the cycling team today show. I'm sorry. Thank you for joining us, and thank you, Matt, for that. Use code Underworld. Underdog is pretty cool. All right, AFC East preview. I told you before, I'm going to go in alphabetical order. So we'll start with the Buffalo Bills. B comes first. So Buffalo Bills up there in Buffalo. Now, in 2023, they finished with an 11-6 record. They were first in the AFC East division. I think they beat Miami at the end of the season to secure that. My recollection isn't great, but that sounds familiar. They scored 451 points. That's an average of 26.5 points per game. They were sixth in scoring out of 32 teams, so that's pretty good. They allowed 311 points at 18.3 yards per, or 18.3 points per game. That's fourth out of 32 teams, even better. So you can see that weighted offense and defense, they were a better team on defense than they were on offense. They made it to the playoffs. They won their wild card round against the Pittsburgh Steelers. They beat them 31-17. And then they lost in the divisional round 27-24 against the eventual Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. First couple years of a dynasty. Stay tuned. So you'll see that's a recurring theme with these AFC East playoff teams. So some of the statistics of note, they did have an expected win-loss record, and that's based on point differential. It's based on points scored and points against relative to the other teams in the league. 12-5 was their expected win total, and they didn't meet that. So they somehow lost a game by, we use the word luck in advanced analytics. It doesn't necessarily mean like, oh, that's bad luck or whatever. It just means something that can't be defined analytically. There was some factor involved that doesn't show up on the stat sheet, and it defies their expected win-loss totals. So that they did lose a game by luck. Some interesting stats: 4,154 total passing yards and 29 touchdowns. Rushing, 2,212 total rushing yards and 22 touchdowns. And then on defense, they had an 800-yard differential, meaning they gained 800 more yards passing. Sorry, 800-yard differential in the passing game. They gained 800 more yards passing than their opponents. Basically what that means is that their pass defense was shutting people down. Their opponents had 20 fewer passing attempts. That's like the Bills having 20 40-yard passes more than their opponents, everything being equal. They also allowed 11 fewer touchdowns passing than they scored. There have been some roster changes at Buffalo. They lost strong safeties Jordan Poyer and Saran Neal. We'll talk about Poyer in a little bit. Center Mitch Morse, running back Nyheim Hines, and wide receiver Deontay Hardy. More notably, Stephon Diggs is now on the Houston Texans. Gabe Davis is now on the Jacksonville Jaguars. And Raiders legend Latavius Murray, Tay-Train, is a free agent. I mean, but he's like 32 years old or something. I don't know why he hasn't announced his retirement. He still thinks that he can play, and I don't doubt him because he's the Tay-Train. Linebackers coach Bobby Babich has been promoted to replace their previous defensive coordinator. And so Bobby Babich, defensive coordinator, and then Joe Brady takes over as the offensive coordinator. Roster additions, they signed Raiders legend Mac Hollins and Raiders legend linebacker Nicholas Morrow. Those two both got single-year, one-year contracts. And Curtis Samuel of the Washington Commanders. Now, on the fantasy side, I do have some fantasy shows, and one of my fantasy shows yesterday, we were talking about wide receiver hot takes, and one of my hot takes is that Curtis Samuel is going to be the target leader for the Buffalo Bills. He is entering his 8th season. He's only ever eclipsed 100 targets one time, and I think he's going to do it. He's never finished better than, I think, wide receiver 25 in PPR, but I think he's going to finish in the top 24 just because I think he's going to develop a pretty good relationship with Josh Allen, and they're going to do some things. All right, so 2024 NFL draft, round 2, they drafted wide receiver Keon Coleman. That was a trade that they got from the Panthers. Safety Cole Bishop out of Utah. Dwayne Carter, defensive tackle out of Duke. That they got that pick from the Chiefs. Running back Ray Davis out of Kentucky. Watch that guy. Swing guard, center guard Cedric Van Prangranger from Georgia. Edufon Olufosho from Washington. Round 5, still defensive end Javon Solomon from Troy, Tylen Grable from UCF, and cornerback Daquan Hardy from Penn State, and their own Mr. Irrelevant guard Travis Clayton, who is on the international player pathway. So I don't know where he's from, Canada maybe. But yeah, so they had some good additions in the draft. I think Ray Davis is going to probably play a little bit more running back than people are imagining. And of course, Keon Coleman, drafted as if he is going to take over the Stephon Diggs wide receiver 1 role in the room. That remains to be seen. All right, so moving on. Next in the alphabet comes Miami, the Miami Dolphins. They've also finished 11-6, but they were second in the AFC East. They scored 496 points, 29.2 points per game. That was second out of 32. That's good. They allowed 391 points, 23.0 points per game, 22nd of 32 teams. That's bad. They had an expected win-loss of 10.8 to 6.2. So I don't know how you can have 0.8 of a win, but hey, you can have 0.2 of a point. So they also they had a better record than they should have based on the state of their defense. The Dolphins also made it to the playoffs. The Dolphins also lost to the eventual Super Bowl champion and foundation of a dynasty, Kansas City Chiefs. That game they lost 26-7. And I think it was the coldest game in the NFL since the Raiders-Browns playoff game in like 1981 or 1981. Running back Kenny King had himself a pretty good day. All right, some notable statistics. They finished with 4,514 yards passing and 30 touchdowns. They rushed for 2,308 yards and 27 touchdowns. Now on defense, they were first in rushing yards allowed. Yeah. And also first in rushing touchdowns allowed. They were sixth in yards allowed. Offense, they were first in rushing touchdowns and first in yards per rush. That's what I meant. Put it under the wrong header. Way to go, me. They were first in rushing touchdowns and first in yards per rush. They were sixth in yards allowed per rush, which is good, but they allowed the 17th most rushing touchdowns. Essentially what that means is they are good scheming their defense between the 20s, but you get them into the red zone and down on the goal line, and they're gonna give up those running touchdowns. So they might want to build up that defensive line interior. Maybe sign a Christian Wilkins or something. Oh, and we'll get into that in a little bit. All right. Well, how about now? Some former Dolphins. Let's go to the former Dolphins list. This is kind of like at the Oscars, the in memoriam, only they're thankfully not deceased. They are just on different teams. Defensive tackle Christian Wilkins signed with the Las Vegas Raiders. Guard Robert Hunt signed with the Panthers. Cornerback Xavier Howard is a free agent. Linebacker Jerome Baker also was a free agent. Andrew Van Ginkel signed with the Vikings. Safety Brandon Jones signed with the Broncos. And defensive end Emmanuel Ogba is a free agent. Now, coaching staff changes. Frank Smith remains the offensive coordinator. I mean, of course, you put together an offensive season like they did last year and 70 points against the Broncos. What? You keep that guy in house. And then Anthony Weaver comes over from Baltimore. He was the defensive line coach at Baltimore. He replaces Vic Fangio and is now the defensive coordinator at Miami. The mouth and the brain, not always connected. All right. They added offensive lineman Jack Driscoll, signed him from Philadelphia. Defensive tackle Benito Jones. Linebacker Shaq Barrett. Defensive tackle Jonathan Harris. Cornerback Kendall Fuller. And the aforementioned strong safety Jordan Poyer. March 18th, he signed from the Bills to the Dolphins. 2024 draft. They went out and they grabbed Chop Robinson at defensive end out of Penn State with the 21st pick. Tackle Patrick Paul from Houston. Running back Jalen Wright from Tennessee. A lot of people in the fantasy space really, really love him. Mo Camara from Colorado State, another edge. And my guy, wide receiver Malik Washington out of Virginia. I don't know why he's my guy. I just think he's going to do good things. He's fast. And when you look at that offense, they like to run fast. They run a lot fast. Scott Fishbowl, 14. If you're playing, the rules changes this year. They're using return scoring. Now, Braxton Berrios is in-house, but Malik Washington was a kick returner at Virginia, and it wouldn't cost the Dolphins any money to cut Braxton Berrios. So through training camp, if Malik Washington looks the part, they may go with him, and you'll want him in the fishbowl. Safety, Cal Bears legend Patrick McMorris. They drafted him, and wide receiver Taj Washington, overshadowed at his career at USC by Jordan Addison, Brendan Rice. Caleb Williams got all the hype, but he wasn't a wide receiver. University of California Golden Bears. Can we start calling them Safety U? How many safeties are out there that come from University of California, Berkeley? There's a lot. Spoiler alert, but Patrick McMorris is a new one, and he is now with the Dolphins. All right, moving on. Let's see what comes after M. Let's talk about the New England Patriots, because that's an N, which comes after M, and also New York comes after M, but York starts later than England. So New England Patriots, 4-13 in the AFC East. That was good for last. I love that turn of phrase, good for last. They scored 236 points. That was 31st out of 32 teams. Wow. Only one team scored fewer points than the Patriots. They allowed 366 points, 21.5 points per game, which was 15th of 32. That is slightly above average. So, hey, good on you, Patriots D. They had an expected win-loss of 4.4 to 12.6. So roughly, they played as they should have. Some interesting statistics on offense. They were 31st in points and 30th in yards, and those are terrible. Hopefully, they've done some things in the offseason to address that. On defense, they were 15th in points and 7th in yards. That's pretty good. Good job, New England. Subtractions, coaching staff changes. Bill Belichick has left the building. Wild Bill, whatever nickname you want to give him, he built the Patriots dynasty, period. And he is no longer there. He is off gallivanting with a woman of a certain age, and he should be very proud of himself. He definitely outkicked his coverage, like plenty of punters that he drafted. There were a lot of coaching changes. Gerard Mayo takes over as head coach. Alex Van Pelt has come over after being the offensive coordinator in Cleveland. He takes over as offensive coordinator in New England. Some of the roster subtractions: Malcolm Butler announced his retirement. Matthew Slater announced his retirement. I guess they were Belichick guys. They didn't, well, Bill's not going to be here. I don't want to be here either. Cody Davis announced his retirement. Chris Board was released. Devontae Parker was released. Miles Bryant signed with the Texans. Trent Brown signed with the Bengals. And Ezekiel Elliott signed with the Cowboys. Additions: linebacker Sione Takitaki. Now, side note, I have a friend that I grew up with. He was my best friend in elementary school and stuff. His name was Taki. And so if he was Sione's brother, his name would be Taki Taki Taki. I've always thought that was funny, but that's probably just me. Pass catching running back Antonio Gibson is now in the house. Wide receiver KJ Osborne they signed from Minnesota, and tight end Austin Hooper, and safety California Golden Bear legend Jalen Hawkins. See, I told you. It's yeah. The Jets have one too. There's seriously. Let's start calling University of California, Safety U. All right, in the draft, addressing those horrific standings with the offensive scoring, they drafted quarterback Drake May out of the University of North Carolina. So what are they going to do with a quarterback? Well, let's give him some pass catchers. Jalen Polk. Then they drafted Caden Wallace in the third round at O-line and Layden Robinson at O-line. They drafted Caden and Layden to go ahead and protect Drake. Javon Baker, wide receiver. So they went quarterback, wide receiver, O-line, wide receiver. They absolutely had a plan. Marcellus Dial, defensive back out of South Carolina, they drafted. And then, hey, just in case, Joe Milton, let's get another quarterback in here, just in case the first rounder doesn't work out. They brought Joe Milton in, drafted him in the 6th round. And then finally, Jaheim Bell, tight end. Like I said, they signed free agent Austin Hooper. They already had Hunter Henry in the building. Woo pig suey. And then they went out and drafted Jaheim Bell. If you're the Patriots, you can never have enough tight ends. And I will leave the jokes to you guys. So yeah, they have done so much to try and boost their offense. KJ Osborne, Antonio Gibson, Jalen Polk, Javon Baker, Jaheim Bell, Austin Hooper. I mean, they are going for it. And you know, it was a really rough season for the Patriots. And I know Patriots fans, like, it's been what, a week and a half maybe since the last time you guys won a championship. So I know things are hard for you right now. But you know, just things are looking up for the Patriots. So keep your chins up, New England. Folks in Boston, folks in Massachusetts, good things may be on the horizon. You won't have to go without a championship for too much longer, I don't think. All right, let's talk about the Jets, the New York Jets, shall we? 2023. I think the fairest way to say to sum up the Jets 2023 season is, let's call it a wash. They had a specific plan for 2023. Bring Aaron Rodgers in, Hall of Fame quarterback, with a high-value wide receiver in Garrett Wilson, and chuck the ball. They have Breece Hall. They're going to do some things. Now, you might think, well, hey, if they have this great offense, is their defense going to be very good? Yeah, their defense was pretty good. Finished 12th out of 32 teams. They were giving up 20.9 points per game, but they were still like above average. And if things had worked out, then they might have caused a ruckus in the wild card. Problem was, Aaron Rodgers went down first drive of the season, and it was a pretty horrific injury. And now he's trying to come back from an Achilles. I guess he missed mandatory minicamp because he was in Egypt. So that's cool. Yeah, and causing controversy all over the place. There were tons of stories about Aaron Rodgers since August of last year, and most of them have not been about football. So that's not a great look. However, he is coming back, and that portends good things for the Jets. They finished last season 7-10, so hey, not as bad as the Patriots. They were 3rd in the AFC East, 268 points for. That's 15.8 points per game. I guess DiNucci and Wilson couldn't get it done. 29th out of 32, which is bad. That's bad. Two of the worst offensive teams in the division. And like I said, 355 points allowed, 12th out of 32. That's not terrible. Now, their offense was 29th in points allowed. That's better than New England, but it was 31st in yards allowed, which is worse than New England. It's one of those things where you think for them to be worth, they would have had to try, right? Wouldn't you think that? Like, if you want to be worse than the Patriots, you would have to try to be worse. Their defense 12th, and they were third in yards allowed, or third in point, 12th in points and third in yards. That's pretty good. Some losses, roster subtractions. Laken Tomlinson, offensive lineman. Dalvin Cook, Bryce Huff, CJ Uzoma, Mekhi Becton. Now, Huff, Uzoma, and Becton all went to the Eagles. So kind of like the Bills are the Raiders East. Maybe you could look at the Eagles as the Jets South. Bryce Hall, Zach Wilson, John Franklin Myers, all are gone. And I learned two things today. Well, first of all, Pee Wee Jarrett was waived, quarterback out of West Florida. He's 6'2" and his name is Pee Wee, which I thought was kind of ironic. But I learned a couple things doing the research for this. There was a quarterback for the Jets named Pee Wee Jarrett. I also learned that there is a university called West Florida. Two things I had no idea until a couple hours ago. All right. Coaching staff pretty much stayed the same. Robert Saleh, UC Davis legend Nathaniel Hackett still is the offensive coordinator. If you don't know, that's the town I'm in right now, and I'm an alum, and we are proud of Nathaniel Hackett. Additions, Aaron Rodgers. We can call that an addition because he didn't play last year. Javon Kinlaw, they signed in free agency. Mike Williams, wide receiver, over from the Chargers. Tyron Smith, legendary Dallas Cowboys offensive lineman. Let's not get it's almost like there was a task force, and they were like, okay, our goal is to get Aaron Rodgers to not get hurt again. All right, what do we do? Let's sign Tyron Smith. Hassan Reddick is coming in to harass opposing quarterbacks, and Morgan Moses, another offensive lineman, brought over to help protect Aaron Rodgers. We don't want his Achilles to pop again. And also on the offensive line front, protecting Aaron Rodgers, Olu Fashanu, one of the guys that I wanted the Raiders to draft out of Penn State. He was the pick 11, which the Raiders picked at 13, so they couldn't have. But we did get Brock Bowers, so that's a consolation prize that I'm happy with. First round pick Olu Fashanu from Penn State to the Jets. Round 3, pick number 65, Malachi Corley from Western Kentucky. A lot of people don't know the Western Kentucky offense. They were really, really good. They're going to be good again this year. Austin Reed is a rookie quarterback now. He was the quarterback at Western Kentucky, threw a ton of yards, helped me on the college football fantasy side, and Malachi Corley was his primary receiver. Malachi Corley has some analytics, some metrics that are top of the class. Like, he should be really good. Problem is, there's not a lot of room in that wide receiver room for him to kind of like break out. But some reports out of camp were like, hey, he and Aaron Rodgers during the OTAs, they like each other. They're developing a rapport. My favorite running back in the entire draft out of Wisconsin, Braylon Allen, brought him in during camps. He immediately showed they don't need Dalvin Cook. He's Breece Hall's backup. So in your fantasy drafts, deep back end of the draft, grab Braylon Allen. He's the Breece Hall handcuff that you want. Quarterback Jordan Travis, another guy that I liked. I really, really loved the Penn State draft, or the Penn State. I really loved the Jets draft. Every single one of those guys, Jordan Travis, Braylon Allen, Malachi Corley, and Olu Fashanu, I tried to mock to the Raiders. I wanted the Raiders to grab them. Running back Isaiah Davis out of South Dakota State. FCS school that's not on a lot of people's radar, but there are some pretty fast players that come out of South Dakota State. And Quantez Stiggers from the Toronto Argonauts. Sorry, I mispronounced Toronto. Quantez Stiggers, cornerback, drafted out of the CFL Canadian Football League. And finally, Jalen Key, safety out of Alabama. So that is the Jets roundup. Yeah, that's the AFC East is going to be pretty competitive this year. It happens every year. You get some positive regression from some teams and some negative regression. It's hard to determine how that's all going to happen. It's hard to predict. The brain wants to kind of stay the course. Bills were in first place last year. That sounds fair because we don't know how things are going to happen, how things are going to work themselves out. Miami possibly could challenge for first place. Not likely that the Patriots and the Jets are going to be in position to win the division, but weirder things have happened. And then you go to the logic, and they have Drake May, and he's young, and if he's not starting, then Jacoby Brissett is starting, and it's a new coaching staff and all that stuff. So basically, in your predictions, status quo matters. The fewest changes on the coaching side was in Miami. They're likely going to do it again. The Bills obviously have to be the favorites to win the division because we don't have much more information other than the fact that they lost Diggs and Davis. But, Diggs is getting older. They had to move on, and Gabe Davis wasn't really a game changer anyway. So my prediction for the season is Bills, Dolphins, Jets, Patriots. Basically what we saw last year. All right, that's our show. Join me next week as I go over the NFC East because alphabet. Make sure you're subscribed. Hit the bell so you'll know when my new show, Dynasty Stock Exchange, drops. Now with more Emerson Beery. He's going to be my co-host. Emerson and I are going to be doing the Dynasty Stock Exchange show. Like this, share it around, leave some comments. I saw some people in the chat. And next week when I have a guest, I might be able to address some of those comments a little bit better. But I appreciate the comments. Leave some more if you're watching this after the live stream, and just say hi, whatever, and follow us. Player Profiler News on Twitter is at profiler_NFL. That's at PROFILER_NFL. Find our archive at playerprofiler.com news. I already said subscribe to the channel, and you're already here. So thank you. And I will talk to you guys next week. Thanks a lot. Oh, wait. Hey, Matt, get us out of here.
From the Podfather to you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the hosts, the research they do, the production costs? Go to playerprofiler.com, Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, data analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.